Good afternoon in New York and Eastern North America. Good morning, Oregon, middle and the western part. Good evening in Vienna in Europe, Uganda in Africa. Good very early morning or very late night in India and Nepal. And welcome, whatever time of day or night, for all who are joining us from all corners of the world. Sorry. I'm Yael Danieli, founder and executive director of the International Center for Multigenerational Legacies of Trauma, ICMGLT for short. Thank you for joining us, our webinar on lifelong and intergenerational impacts of child labor. Convened in collaboration with Empowerment Collective, this International Center for Multigenerational Legacies of Trauma webinar is held following June 12, the World Day Against Child Labor. The 2025 World Day takes place against the backdrop of recent releases of both the Global Commission on Modern Slavery and Human Trafficking report, No Country is Immune, Working Together to End Modern Slavery and Human Trafficking, and the Joint International Labor Organization, ILO, and UNICEF report on global estimates and trends of child labor. Both reports aiming at preventing and eliminating this, quote, hidden, pernicious worldwide crime. International multidisciplinary, multidimensional panelists will share their own and others' childhood slavery experiences, describe their long-term and intergenerational impacts, analyze root causes, and advocate for effective ways of redressing this pervasive scourge. Your moderator, I am a clinical psychologist, traumatologist, victimologist, and psychohistorian. Having developed the first program to help Nazi Holocaust survivors and their children in the 1970s, I have devoted most of my career to studying, treating, writing about, and preventing lifelong and multi-generational impacts of massive trauma worldwide, to ensuring victims' rights, the rights of future generations, and to reparative justice. As a victimologist, I have spent over 4 decades participating in drafting, adopting, implementing, and ensuring that victims' rights reach the victims. Our first presenter today is Nasreen Sheikh. She speaks to us from Portland, Oregon, the United States. Born in an undocumented village in the India-Nepal border, Nasreen was forced into child labor in Kathmandu's textile factories at age 10. Escaping that cycle, she founded local women's handicrafts to break the rules of oppression and empower women. Today, as the founder of the Empowerment Collective, Nasreen champions survivor-led change, global economic transparency, and the fight to end modern slavery, sharing her story and vision as a global speaker and activist. Our second presenter is Amar Lal. From the nomadic Banjara community, Amar Lal experienced poverty, child labor, and displacement growing up. Rescued by a child rights activist in 2001, he was given access to education, which empowered him to advocate for children's rights. Amar led the National Bal Panchayat and represented India at global forums. He graduated from law school in 2018 and now practices at the Delhi High Court, focusing on child labor and sexual abuse cases, turning his personal struggles into powerful advocacy. Third is Hawa Nanjobe Kimbugwe, a Ugandan visionary creative artist, social impact leader, and advocate. Hawa gives voice to the struggle of discrimination, marginalization, multigenerational trauma, and social injustice. Through performance poetry and community empowerment, she champions healing, women's empowerment, and youth protection, tackling issues like child labor. As founder of Hawa Cares initiative, Hawa collaborates with organizations and schools to drive positive change and enlighten futures. Fourth, last but not least, from Vienna, is Silke Albert, a qualified lawyer. Ms. Albert has worked on issues related to human trafficking and migrant smuggling for both intergovernmental and grassroots non-governmental organizations since 2001. At present, she's team leader, child trafficking, survivor engagement, and partnership team at the Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling section of UNODC, the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, with which I've been connected for over 4 decades. The team is currently preparing for the first ever global forum for and with survivors of human trafficking that will take place in Vienna 24 to 25 June, very soon. And we're very lucky to grab her hour and a half to be with us. We have an hour and a half for the webinar, though we have been known for very engaged audience who keeps us longer. Following ILO's, the International World Labour Organization, ILO's video for the 2025 International Day Against Child Labour, each of our presenters will speak for about 10 minutes. Then, after an interchange among us, I will open the floor for questions or brief comments from the virtual audience, you. We will then discuss future plans and conclude today's meeting with quotes, last words. Please use the Q&A or chat functions, and we will do our best to respond to as many questions and brief comments as we can. Feel free to direct your questions to a particular panelist or to the full panel. Let us now, please, begin with the ILO video for the 2025 day. We're lucky now we're moving to real people. Nasrin, the screen or the floor, everything is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see it? Can you see it?
Perfect, perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Danelle, for this wonderful introduction. And dear respected members of the International Center of Multi-Generational Legacies of Trauma, dear friends, fellow survivors, and all the kind supporters. Thank you, thank you for being in this space and giving the opportunities for survivors like us to be seen, to be heard, We carry so much love and compassion and the courage and the deep pain that is every day is helping us heal. My name is Nasrin Sheikh. I was born in a remote, undocumented village on the border of India and Nepal called Rajora. And it is very close to Tarai region where a lot of human trafficking, extreme level of poverty. When we are talking about poverty back time in when I was born, I think my birth was never documented. And in those back in 1990s, the conditions were very extremely harsh in those areas, and forced marriage, child labor, and gender oppressions were very normal experience for a lot of people. Growing up in this male-dominated society with no electricity, no hospitals, no clean water, you can imagine what person has to go through, especially being a young girls. Uh, when I witnessed my own 16-year-old sister being forced into marriage, my communities and my family and everybody knew that I would be next. I better be prepared, but I did not want it to be that. So I tried to, many girls don't want to be a part of that. And when they try to escape, they end up into another form of slavery, another form of pain. And for me, I ended up in Kathmandu, Nepal, where I was working 12 to 15 hours a day for less than $2, producing piles and piles of garments and clothes in a very very tiny sweatshop room. And not only we experience the lack of basic hygiene in those sweatshops, but we also endure so much abuse and pain that still exist in my body and in my system. um, and the poverty levels in those experiences, the chemicals that we had to be exposed in a very very early age was immense. And the fact that today still millions of people, the fact that 50 million people still remain in modern slaveries and goes through these experiences. um, as you can see in my slides, we have outlined very specifically, so you can read. I speak 7 different language. English is definitely not the top one. With the help of my amazing team members, helped me put together, and with really with the help of kind people, I was able to escape my situation. I don't like to share so much my story anymore because when I do, it brings a lot of memory back to my right now. And I feel like as a survivor, I want to work towards ending this problem instead of going back in my own pain and relive through it. So people can, go online and read my detailed story, which is all available everywhere possibly can be. What I want to talk about today, that what took me to get out of that situation. And it's really people. It's the people who hold a better future for another people, people who had a desire that that if I give education to this girl, she can succeed, and also having the self determination and self continually working towards it gave me a hope and opportunities to not repeat the cycle of oppressions. And in Kathmandu in 2008, when I think I was around 15 or 16, I did not had any documents and I could not just even get loan easily. It was very, very hard experience to get a loan without a document, and especially being a young girl, nobody wants to help and support. But again, it was the determinations, like one times, two times, three times, on the sixth times, finally this private loan that I got, and I bought my sewing machines, and I started to make and stitch the same thing that I used to stitch in the sweatshop. In the sweatshop, I would make same shirts for 100 times, and same stitch over and over. And I always tell in the stories that I felt like machine. I was doing the same thing over and over. And when I started local women's handicraft, I did not wanted to have that experience. I wanted to create an experience where people could connect with the product they're making, and making something for beautiful for somebody, but also in return asking people, like, this take this much time, and this should be valuable. People should get paid fairly. So our social business, local women's handicrafts, became more than a business. It became a place and hub for activism, where journalists, activists would come and talk about these issues around fast fashion and fast consumptions, but also provide jobs for these marginalized and vulnerable women, who a lot of them were ending up in the sweatshops. We wanted to take them out of those conditions. So local women's handicrafts became one of the really successful project. Since 2008 is still running through, and we have created and supported around 5,070 artisans, and helped so many women to really empower themselves through skills and knowledge. um in 2018, like, you all might can think, like, how did I jump from 2008 to 2018 and having a nonprofit? What happened is that as I was running the social business in Nepal, um, we had a lot of challenges. One of the challenges was the natural disaster, climate crisis, which is earthquake, hit Nepal, 7.8 magnitude earthquake. And then on top of that, we had blockades was happening because Nepal is a landlocked country. And in those times, I really felt like my project is going to be shut down. We are not going to make it. And that's when one of my friend asked me that I should start speaking about these issues, because it's not, the struggle was so immense, and it's like trying with a small community was not sustainable anymore. It needed advocacy, it needed more awareness, and people need to know what was happening, because we were trapped by not just having lack of support, but also through the natural disasters and blockade and political instabilities. So once I started the share the stories of our work, in 2018, I had for the first time opportunities to come to America. And when I came to America and I walked to this major department store, I really came to fully understanding that how disconnected our world is. People are consuming things without knowing, without understanding, and their behaviors are impacting on human dignity and human lives. And so that really inspired to find Empowerment Collective, to really raise awareness around the globe and make people aware. And Empowerment Collective work also became global, and working with survivors got some attention. And with that, we were appointed as a global commission, one of the commissioner, to give more survivor informed dialogues and policies to make a better decision. um as all of you just saw in the video, that how the child labor issues should be end. We shouldn't be talking today in 2025. This should be the end. There should be no child labor. The fact that 138 million child labor are still exist on our planet is just such a painful experience. And most of them are in agricultures and hazards conditions. How many of us, we are drinking coffees, and we are consuming coconut, and we are using fruits, and we
Is it just me? I think I've lost Nasreen.
Yeah, Nasrin, are you frozen? Ah, and that's in the United States. How you were concerned about Africa, yeah.
Turns out I'm not alone.
Nasrin, uh,
Can she maybe first turn off the video and then come back on? Sometimes the video takes a lot of bandwidth.
I hope she hears you. Okay, very good. She heard you. Excellent. Let's give her a moment. If not, Amar, I would ask you to continue, but let's first give Nasrin a moment.
Yeah, I think we can wait at least for 2 to 3 minutes. Maybe see get back to and continue her conversation. I think that would be a better idea.
Say that again. Sorry, I missed the beginning.
I'm saying that like maybe at least we should wait for a few minutes so she can
Yes,
continue
yes,
her conversations. Yeah.
absolutely. It's just that our time is so precious.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So if her internet is down, thank you, Adeline, for trying. Please, Adeline, let her know that we will move to Amar and she will then come back later. Is that okay? Adeline, what do you think? Okay, very good. Yeah, we now we lost Hawa too. The world is. So this is, oh, here she
Okay, so
is. Here she is, wonderful. Nasrin, please continue, but shorten so everyone has their time also.
Yeah, I cannot really like.
We were expecting Africa to have a problem, not
I
you.
Okay, I will keep it short. So
Please.
basically, like the issues of child labor is very generational, and what I was sharing is that people like us who are survivors, we just don't face this life, but we also carry the inherent generational trauma, and it goes beyond. So it's very important for people who are working in this sector to understand that how embedded and how deep this pain can be, and how much it can take on the psychological level of someone's dignity. So as there's all these issues, as a survivor, it is very important for me to end these issues, and for many of us this is like, how can we end this so it never happens to anybody? One of the things that I feel is that as a child, there's basic human rights that I do need to have in order to protect my identity, for my dignity, and those are basically like basic food, water, healthcare, educations. If we don't have those basic elements, we will lose the dignity, and when we lose that dignity, we are not a full human to participate in a healthy world. So we demand as organizations and ensure that people that we are serving to have access to food, have access to water, have access to educations. And one of the things that we are really working towards is the survivor leadership, because there is, as you said, Dr. Daniel, there's lots of people that think that they're expert, and yet I believe the people who are closest to the problems are the one that closest to the solutions. We have experienced it, we have lived it, our family members are affected, our villages are affected by it. So what we do as organizations to people, to give the resources to those leaders who can fix and supports and help their own communities their own way, you know, because there's not one solution that can help everybody. The solution with every communities, it evolves, it changes. So that's why we support a lot of these survivor leadership and survivor leadership programs. Some of the other programs that we do is the around youth visionaries, to really engage youth people with the knowledge and tools, and the culture arts preservations, it's around specifically around consumption, how people are forgetting the cultures. You know, people back in time used to connect with their tools, their looms, their, you know, their basic elements, and turn them that into economy. And those things does exist in our communities. Women can make a living wage, and they can support their children to go to schools. And so we are running these programs. One of the most incredible program that we are doing is the circular leadership, which is really about to let go of the hierarchy and believe in the circular leadership, where we make decisions what is the greater good for everybody, and making sure that everyone's voices are heard. And when in Nepal we had earthquake, we developed this framework, person to person intelligence, which is really around deeper connections, deeper relationship. Because when we know one another, when one community knows another communities, when disasters happens, those are the two communities are going to help first before the foreign aid comes and take over. And once the more their relationship is deeper, they are going to help and bring those resources much more effective level. One of our global work is around transparent trade initiative. This is really about looking into the bottom of the supply chain, because in the bottom of the supply chain, in every sector, whether it's garment, whether it's building materials, whether it's in the solar panel, whether it's in the food, bottom of the supply chains, where children, where women and men are being forced to work in inhumane conditions. So what we're trying to do is to really create a momentum to bring open, like this, the supply chain is supposed to be not hidden. It should be an open document, open information, so the public can make informed choices about their purchasing behaviors. So we are trying to lead these three agreements, which is really the commitment and making sure that the bottom of the supply chains are open, and also educating people and bringing people together to make them aware about how and what ways people are trapped in the forced labor, because today is still 28 million people are still trapped in forced labor, as I was 10, 12, 15 years ago. So why I feel like women leadership is so essential, because it's the mothers who are buying things. It's the mothers that who will make sure that they will not want to feed another children suffering to their children. So we are uniting every International Women's Day, women, children, men to come together and demand for mandatory supply chain labeling in their products. It should be their rights to know what they're consuming and how they're consuming. So if people would like to know and learn more, they can visit this website and get to know more. Same as I said, like my story, I'm not going to repeat. People can go online and read about it. We are here to advocate for survivor leadership, because I believe the issues of modern slavery will end by survivor themselves and those communities. And the more we can create this dialogue, that how we are going to end child labor also from the root. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nasreen. Everybody can see why Nasreen and Empowerment Collective is a recipient of the ICMGLT Leadership Repair Leadership Award 2 months ago. It feels like yesterday. Nasreen, I think it might be helpful if it's okay with you to share your PowerPoints, your videos. on the chat so people will have more time to get into depth and think about each one of your points. Thank you so much. And now our middle of the night participant, Amar. You have our sympathy and we are eager to hear your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yell, for this amazing introductions. And thank you so much, everyone, to joining here from around the world. Even like India is night, but there are many people who just woke up early morning to listening this amazing uh, sessions which we are having today. So yeah, thank you so much once again. So my name is Amarlal, as Dr. Yel mentioned to you all. And by profession, I am a child rights and human rights lawyer. And if I talk about my life, that how I came here and how I became a lawyer. So I belongs to from a Banjara community, and it's a community like a nomadic community around the world, and it's a similar like in India also. So they're like the community who always travel from one place to the another place, and my family always used to be like that because before I got into the educations, there was no one in my family who been to schools. So I was the first generations who got opportunity to study and explore myself and the importance of the educations. And I remember that like how child labor and forced labor life was with me and with my family. Like we used to break the stones in the mines at different places, and we used to live in the same place where the mines used to be. And many times like big stone used to be like fall down from those mines and come around your place, or maybe sometime on your house, on your body. And like you breaking from a lot, sometimes you have a lot of scratch, a lot of blood. But like you're doing like as in a labor over there, and you are not earning that much that you can actually get like a hospital, or maybe you can go for the treatment. But you don't think about that, and you just fold your hand and think about it, okay, just leave it. Because for us the more important is that like survival of our life, survival for the food. That is the basic necessity which my family, my parents, my brother and sisters, we lived, like how it used to be and how difficult it was. But I would say that I'm a very lucky boy, because when we are sitting here and just on 12th of June, like few days back, when ILO talking that there are still 128 million children who are the still child labor around the world. So it means still 128 million's life still struggling for their basic fundamental rights, which they actually belongs to. So yeah, I was so lucky, yeah, and that I came out from that work. I got opportunity to educations. I got to know like what is the life out of labor and forced labor, out of this slavery. Um, how can I study? How can I get to know all around the people doing study and everything? How I can become a friends, people like you who are talking about the similar kind of the issues. And if I had no that opportunity, I was not able to be here and speak and share this moment with all of you and the right thing which we are doing. And I did my education. I started my senior high schools from over there. And when I was studying, I was living in one of the shelter home, the place where I was studying. And I used to see like uh, every few days later or in a month or 2 months, there was some children who used to come at the same shelter place where I was living. And when I got to know and realize that their story is much, much more worse than what I have been through in my life. So you can imagine, like, this is not with you. Like, there are millions and who are struggling for the similar kind of the thing. So maybe like more worse situations. And you got now something better, and now it's your turn, that how you can contribute to your society and people, the place you actually belongs to from. So during my educations, I realize when I study, like what kind of the things I should do, that not only I think about my good future, but I also need to think about the same people, the similar kind of the human being who are still like me. And that's how I realized that I will go for the advocacy, and I will study law, and I want to fight for the rights of the children who are still the part of different kind of the offenses, who are the victim of trafficking, who are the victim of child labor, bonded labor, slavery, sexual offense, and all. And I passed my law schools in 2018, and I became a lawyer. And today, and proudly, I can say that I am fighting for the those children who I wanted to be, and I'm going every single day to court and fighting for their justice. And that was my dream, and that's what I am looking forward for my life. And it's amazing and incredible. Like every day you go there and you help some. It's not like you're helping, or maybe, but you are fighting and you are saying that this is the wrong and this is the right. And that's what they actually deserve it. What I have been through, I do not allow other to do the same thing with the people I used to be. So yeah, so for me, I can say to all of you that what education change, what opportunity can make any child. So everybody is a special. uh, I won't say like anybody is a big or small. I think everybody is a unique. The only very small things which they need in their life, that chance, that opportunity, that place, that area, that environment, and I think they can do better than me. So yeah, please allow them to do what they want to do, and that's our dream. And I hope uh, we don't need to keep continue talking and having such kind of the meeting on a UN level, on ILO level, or maybe the kind of the conference we are doing, and talking again and again that okay, today is 120 million, and the after 1 year we are sitting here and we are saying like okay, still there are 125 million children who are the child labor. Yeah, I hope we don't need to be listen this, and we will achieve what we want, and every child deserve better good life. So do your bit and do your best what we can do. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak here.
I can't tell you how humbled I feel when I hear you. Do you plan to run for office? We need that. We talk more later.
My pleasure, my pleasure. We will definitely anything for the children, for the people who actually deserve it. Yeah.
Thank you. How dear, all the way from Kampala. The floor is yours. Please unmute.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the contributions of Nasreen and Amar, the current panelists. I'm just going to, I hope I can share my screen. Can it be shared?
It's perfect. Thank you. Mhm.
Okay. Yes. Thank you everyone that has joined the webinar. To just like save time, because I know we have like strictly 10 minutes. I'm just going to get started. I just want to time myself so that I'm not really killing the time, but I'm going to get started. My name is, so the webinar is really lifelong and intergenerational impact of child labor. And I'm going to have a focus on building a culture of healing and creative resistance against childhood slavery. Good morning. I know we are from different parts in the world. I know we are from different parts of the world. So good morning or good afternoon or good evening, everyone. It is a deep honor to join this vital conversation that's being convened by the International Center for Multigenerational Legacies of Trauma and Empowerment Collective, especially following the World Day Against Child Labor. I am Hawa Nanjobe Chimbugwe, a creative artist, peace builder, and the founder of the Hawa Cares Initiative, where we use quality interfaith education and creative arts to address social injustice, build peace, and support healing. Today or tonight, I speak not only from my professional lens, but from a deep commitment to amplifying the voices of those who have been silenced, particularly children and young people whose lives have been affected by forced labor, trafficking, and other forms of modern slavery. So the hidden crisis, the issue we speak of today is really the intergenerational trauma and the child labor. Modern slavery and child labor are often referred to as hidden crimes, but for many communities around the world, they are a visible and painful daily reality, as has been evidenced by Amar and Nasrin. The recent report by the Global Commission on Modern Slavery that Adeline has shared in our chat and human trafficking rightly reminds us that no country is immune. And as people say their stories, and also with the communities I work with, it keeps hitting me that there is so much that happens beyond the statistics. So while we actually acknowledge statistics and voice them and keep referring to them, there is so much more that happens beyond the statistics. So behind and beyond the statistics are real human stories, stories of children robbed of their innocence, denied their education, and forced into cycles of servitude, often under conditions that break both the body and the spirit. Many of these children grow or will grow into adults that carry unspoken burdens of unresolved trauma, which ripples across generations. And in my work, whether through community, peace building, poetry, or youth engagement in schools, I have witnessed these impacts firsthand. They are not abstract. They live in memory, they live in culture and relationships, and too often they live in silence. And this is how the cycle continues.
Mhm.
In Uganda's context, in Uganda, the national estimates indicate that 18% of children aged 5 to 17 are engaged in child labor, most commonly agriculture, but also in sectors such as construction, mining, manufacturing, domestic service. Domestic service is usually the nannies and all the domestic work, street work, and commercial sexual exploitation. The impact of this exploitation extends far beyond immediate or initial physical and economic harm. When a child grows up in such conditions, the trauma does not end with them. It shapes their ability to trust, to form relationships, to raise children, and to feel safe. This is the nature of intergenerational trauma. It is passed down silently, affecting families and communities long after the original harm has occurred. And while 18% in Uganda could seem a trivial percentage, if like, for example, I tell you today that everybody attending this webinar, I'm talking about your child, I am talking about your nephew, I am talking about your niece, I am talking about your uncle's children, your brother's children, your sister's children. When you bring it closer to home, that's when you actually realize that it's very, the effects are really high. At Our Cares Initiative, we work with secondary schools majorly. We form peace clubs in schools and discuss so many of these things, but we also do community work because so many of the children or of the young people do not go to school. So at Our Cares Initiative, we encounter many young people in schools whose parents or grandparents experience child labor, exploitation, or systemic violence. Some of this is still ongoing because as the cycle continues, even the children, like you saw in the introduction video, when there is economic inequality, children are forced to actually work to ensure that they make ends meet at home. Some of those legacies remain unspoken in families because it's, majorly survival, but these appear in behaviors, fears, mental health struggles, and parenting styles. Breaking this cycle begins with naming the trauma, creating safe spaces for dialogue, so we hold dialogues at school, and validating these lived experiences, not just in academic reports, but in homes, in schools, and in healing spaces. At Our Cares Initiative, we also employ creative arts for healing and resistance with a special bias to poetry. So we turn to poetry not only as a form of expression, but as resistance, reclamation, and restoration. The creative arts has the power to speak to what systems try to suppress. When children and youth are given creative tools, whether poetry, visual art, music, or storytelling, they begin to reframe their narratives. They move from victims to survivors, from silence to voice. In my own poetry, I'll share the YouTube link on the chat. In my own poetry, I speak out against social injustice, discrimination, and marginalization because silence too is a form of complicity. Poetry humanizes statistics. It reminds us that every child laborer is a person with a name, with a dream, with a story worth hearing and inspiring action. Through community workshops and creative engagements, we equip youth with not only facilities or skills to process trauma, but to advocate for policy change and justice. And as I conclude, I know that no one can make this alone. We cannot end modern slavery and child labor through awareness alone. It requires action, it requires policy reforms, protection systems, accountability for exploiters, and empowerment for survivors. So, as a communications officer at Interface Uganda and a board member at MEMPRO, I've seen the power of community-driven advocacy because community-driven advocacy inspires a sense of community policing, whereby a community or different households in a district or again a community can actually avoid forced child labor. Whenever they see a child being forced into labor or child abuse, as a community, they'll come in to protect that child. So we must support survivors as leaders, not as just subjects of programs. We must collaborate across sectors. I know that faith communities do have a lot of influence. That's why we actually do a lot of interfaith work. We work with mosques and churches because I know that faith communities and faith leaders do have a lot of impact. Educators, because so many people are in school, and even the people that undergo forced child labor tend to miss school. Some of them have enrolled, some of them don't attend school, either because their parents can't afford, or they are coming from underprivileged backgrounds, or they are missing school to attend to the work they have been forced to do because of the circumstances they have been placed in. Governments, everything rises and falls on leadership. So we do a lot of advocacy so that government can actually do its best to apply or implement the policies that it passes. Artists, of course, creative artists do create a lot of buzz, and they manage to voice vulnerabilities so many people may not be able to voice. And to address these all these have to collaborate to address the root causes. And some of the root causes are poverty. Of course, I've talked about the economic inequalities, discrimination, lack of access to education, and generally systemic inequality. In conclusion, like I said, everything rises and falls on leadership. As people attending this webinar, in all our capacities or in all the positions that we hold, as sister, as a big sister, as a child, as a child, like as a child who has children following them, and as a teacher, as a founder of an organization, this all, like, we can all contribute in our small ways as we wait for, like, policies and to be implemented, and governments to make changes, and whatever organizations that are above governments, international bodies, to do their work. What can we do as us? Ending child labor and modern slavery is not just a moral imperative, it is a call to imagination, to courage, and solidarity. Let us listen deeply to survivors. Let us speak truth through our platforms and take action in our small ways, where you have influence as an individual. Because in your small way, the ripple effect can actually build a culture that listens, that heals, and transforms. Finally, let us build a world where no child is enslaved physically, emotionally, and generationally. Thank you very much. And I will pass it on to Dr. Yale.
Thank you, Hava. Couldn't be said better. Each one of you is, when we listen to all your voices, it's packed with wisdom and necessary lessons. And my dear colleague Silke, please, the floor is yours. Now it's from the United Nations perspective.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yael. Thank you, Nasreen, Amar, and Hawa. It's like you said, Dr. Yael, it's so much wisdom. It sometimes leaves one speechless. It's so simple. And you find yourself thinking, why, like you said, Amar, why are we still talking? Why are we still meeting? Why are we not celebrating successes? And maybe we can celebrate successes. I saw from the introductory video that when there are efforts made collectively, changes can be seen. And maybe this is how we can change the statistics. But I feel really honored to be in that panel, and among such, I am full of respect for the speakers. You presented so well. And I fully understand, and that's what we hear when working with survivors of trafficking as well. You are tired of retelling your story, and that's not perhaps what we should be looking out for, but the story is maybe the story of surviving, and maybe the story of what happened to you for a change, to change your situation and to address the situation you were in. So for us, so I'm talking from UNODC, UN Office on Drugs and Crime, and we have a mandate to focus on trafficking in persons. That comes from the Trafficking in Persons Protocol, an international treaty that you perhaps know as the Palermo Protocol. We are supporting countries to prevent and respond to trafficking in persons, and so including child trafficking and including child trafficking for labor exploitation. And then comes also a bit of definitional issue because of child trafficking and child labor overlapping. It shall not interest us so much. It's more like for trafficking, we see that victims of trafficking seem to have additional rights. That's how the international community decided it, seem to have additional rights because as victims of a crime. So we take it a level further in a way to collect, and this is exactly where the challenge lies, something that is often culturally accepted, even culturally beyond accepted. There is a need for children to contribute to the income, that like an artificial distinction, is this trafficking, is this labor exploitation, doesn't make a lot of sense, while at the same time we see it from the rights perspective. So, and that a criminal can always exchange the people. We know, for example, its victims. We know, for example, from our global report, and I will share the link. We have monitored the trafficking situations for many years. We have realized we are not able to produce figures like 28 million or figures that I see and read. And maybe that's what you say, like these are statistics. I know we are always pressed for figures because we hear this is what media needs. The funny thing is, when we think about what media needs, we always need to think, so what changes if they have these figures, and then what difference can we even imagine? Is it 128 million? Is it 28 million? Is it 2.8 million? Would we know the difference? And this is where the message comes home. We talk about human beings, and I don't like the phrase like, if there is one, it's even too much, because we know we talk about a considerable problem. We are not talking about one. But so we see from our data, from our reports, that globally 1 in 3 victims of trafficking detected globally is a child. And that is scary, because we know that many victims are not even identified. So of those who are identified, it's even children. And then we know children are specifically not identified. So this is how we look at statistics. And it is a bit scary, because in some areas it is more than 1/3. And we have seen that over the last 15 years, the share of children among detected victims has about tripled. And also we have seen, for example, a shift into boys being identified as victims. So the thing is this what's going on? Is this really new? Or is this what we've been living with all the time, and we are just better to identify? I would still see the identification of victims as progress. But then again, when we talk about statistics, what the statistics don't tell us is, so if these children have been identified as victims of trafficking, have they been properly referred to child protection services? Are they now able to learn? Is their trauma and their traumatic experience being taken care of? Will they have opportunities? Are they in safe housing? We don't know that. We also don't know, because I made the point how important it is to look at it as trafficking, where it is trafficking, but do we know anything about the traffickers? And that is the problem. I fear we don't. We don't know, for example, if the figure of like 1/3 of children being 1/3 among the victims being children, if it reflects in 1/3 of the traffickers being convicted for child trafficking, for exploiting children specifically. So these are the unknown, and we don't know anything about the future of these children. So there are issues when we count cases, right? There are many, many issues. And our evaluators also tell us so. So when we are proud of saying, for example, we've identified a child begging chain with connections between Bosnia-Herzegovina and France. The question was, okay, and what happened with these children that you so rescued? And this is where we lack a little bit answers. Anyway, when we talk about children, I think family is an issue, and I've heard it also in this panel. And in both high and low income countries, root causes include family dysfunction, lack of parental care, and early exposure to violence. Now, we also generally say that parents are not the one that traffic their children. They fall victim to the traffickers, just like the children. And at the same time, we also see sometimes it's too easy. Sometimes, again, there is a culturally, environmentally, whatever, accepted culture of violence. Children may not even recognize, even the parents may not recognize that their children are being exploited because of the hardship, because everybody may see it as part of their socioeconomic struggle. So it's really difficult to come with this agenda of trafficking or with the agenda of how many we need to rescue, because we also here, we as an organization, for the first time, we reach out to survivors. I can tell you it's not easy for us. I said that to the panelists before. It is not easy for us because we are a really bureaucratic organizations. We always refer to rules and regulations, and it has a lot of impact. It has even so much impact that we as workers in these organizations no longer think. We think, for example, oh, it would be great to have a survivor on the panel. Then we reach out to the survivor on the panel. And this is where the interest ends. So we get the speech and that's it. And so we've seen that looking into ourselves, we really need to do much more to also look at how does the UN treat survivors? How do we deal with victims of trafficking? Again, like I said, we are not set up. We work with countries. But the thing is, working with countries, we also realized that countries don't bring in the voices of survivors. We, as an organization, have not brought in the voices of survivors. And I want to be very, very honest with you. I've been a culprit myself. I was thinking, because survivors said, like, you can use us for legislation, this, that. And I was like, but how can a survivor influence legislation? What if they are not lawyers? And then talking to survivors, it dawned on me, of course they can influence legislation. They are part of society, not only as parliamentarians, but parliamentarians also need to consult. And they have the experience, and I've heard it from you. They've had the experience. They know what's going on in the communities. They know what's going on in the families. They know what's going on with the traffickers. They've been there. So I had to really revise my opinion very, very strongly. And I have to acknowledge, yes, of course, survivors can influence legislation. Of course, why wouldn't they? And we've seen also the survivors we work with, we only work with adults because we are currently really, really scared of causing harm to survivor children. We probably have to learn how to do that. I know there are organizations who develop guidance. We would really need to learn. But what we learned is that the survivors of today we are dealing with were the children who were trafficked. And we've seen they carry the scars. And if we say trafficking and labor exploitation is not hidden, and we all use the same quotes, I had it in my speech as well, it is not a hidden phenomenon. So yeah, the scars are often hidden. We don't see that, but they are there. And also, again, as an organization, we then came with the terms of trauma-informed, survivor-informed. And I realized, again, we are at risk of creating jargon that will be repeated at conferences. And then everything is trauma-informed and survivor-informed. And then we lose, again, touch to what it means. And we have been told by our sister agencies, when we talk about trauma, we stereotype and we put finger at how do you say, at the pathological side of things. And while I agree with that, there is a risk. I will have to say, really, with our survivors, we have currently a group of about 40. Trafficking, and as you say, labor exploitation as children, it is traumatic. It is an experience that does leave scars. And I've read books. I've read very interesting books that also, like scientifically, look at the child's brain developing And if a child experiences abuse, there is a response of the brain to deal with that. And the child will be functional, and it will be functional for the rest of its life. But it will be functional in a way that is perhaps submissive, that cannot challenge authorities, that cannot participate in a community, that does not have its own voice. So, and that's sad, and that's what you all said, and that's what you said in your presentation, Hava. It's not a moral imperative that we talk about. It's something, it will help us, each of us. Each of us, we live in a world that is so imperfect, and all of us make mistakes every day. And if we leave this conference, we will go out and make further mistakes, all of us, right? But at the same time, perhaps it's good for all of us to make an effort in the areas we can influence. And that, for me, for example, it can be work, but not only. It must not only be work. It must not only be our desk. It can be other areas and little things we can do every day to make a contribution, to not look away, maybe I end here. Yael, you saw it. I totally deviated from my speaking points, but it's just because of the other panelists. Thank you.
God bless you. You can see what the UN at its best is: thoughtful, attentive, wanting to learn, wanting to help, and self-critical in a future-oriented way, right? How can you improve? And I've had the honor of working with UNODC over 40 years. And I want to mark, to share the year. This is the 40th year of the United Nations Declaration of Principles of Justice for Victims of Crime and Victims of Abuse of Power that we adopted at UNODC. So we are in effect observing a very important history among us while learning from each other. There are several points that came up that I want to sort of throw at you for the dialogue among us, but please also remember that there's an audience that might want to participate. I like very much, Silke, your point of particularly the bureaucracies tend to adopt jargons and think that that's the way to solve the problems. And being a trauma specialist, I have a particular painful awareness of that. So that's something very important for all of us to keep an eye on. Howard, the one dimension you didn't mention, I'd like all of us to elaborate on, is the power of the media in helping us, right? Amar, you spoke about education. In my studies, and I will, and you can find, among our over 70 webinars, a lot of webinars that are directly related to today's meeting. I found that education must be on all levels, in every possible medium, including parents to children, of course, right? Including at home, including media, educating the media about the problems, using the media as our allies to help us in the fight, right? Not only education in school and education at universities, but unfortunately learning is everywhere, especially now. And So our job is really to harness it, to teach, as we are doing exactly at our webinars. Okay, so and I would like one more issue for all of us to address, the issue of how governments really need NGOs. Survivors create NGOs, and governments need NGOs to truly understand issues. So the governments don't just dump money when they are, quote, good at the problem, but truly understand the meaning of where support goes. So I wonder if you want to address these points or if you have questions for each other, because this is such a brilliant panel. It's hard to summarize you in any way. Please go ahead. Shall we start from the beginning again? Nasrin, do you have any? You're listening to our colleagues. What anything strikes you? Then we will go in the order. Go ahead, dear.
Yeah, no, this is wonderful conversation that is happening right here, which is sparking a lot of my thoughts. And definitely talking about prevention is something very important because we all know, and I agree with Silke around the statistics, whether it's 28 million or 50 million, those statistics are estimated. Thank God that we have the number that people can at least comprehend their mind, and we know that this many people are in these situations. There is many more that could be, and so like how do we as a society, as a world leader, unite together to make sure to prevent these issues, because this issues is not new. It has been generationally for a long time, and the fact that in 2025, in the time of the modern world where technology exists, where finance exists, where leadership also exists, how in the world we have millions of children in child labor. And I'm not talking about women in forced labor, I'm not talking about men being forced in labor, and the losses that these communities are facing on the climate level, on the societal level is a huge crisis. Basically in my communities, people are facing emergency crisis. So for example, if flood comes, right now we're just being wiped out. We're being just sword, and thank God we have technology that can raise awareness. Somebody can make a YouTube videos and people can watch it. And so how do you provide resources to those communities? How do you empower them? How do you give them the tools and resources that they can speak for themselves? And that's where like our organization is really around, is to give the tools, give the resources to the people so they can speak for themselves. If women are empowered and educated, they will make sure that their children never fall into those circumstances. Survivor leadership is nowadays the buzzwords that is out there. It's nothing about that. It's a very serious conversation that we all need to have, and it is a very disconnected conversation also. We are generationally disconnected from one another, and on the organizational level, survivor leadership organization works completely different than the organization that would work on the UN level and on the civil society and the global level. And so there's a huge gap. And finally, we are coming to a table to have a peaceful conversation, to have these voices heard and really understand the root cause of this. When I see it, one of the root causes is the economic disparities, where certain communities are just so underfunded, underheard, valued. And so how do you see them, and how do you acknowledge them and give them the power to lead? Because that's where the power, and it's also some time of letting go of those power and giving them the opportunities to create that change. And that's where Somebody did give me the opportunity. Somebody gave opportunities to Amar and some others to come and be a leader today, and that's why we are speaking for that. So really, I would a lot focus on the preventions, engaging please meaningfully to survivors and their voices, and in a way that they can really create positive impact, and making sure that the hierarchy that we are going, that we are treating people and the children as numbers, that is so wrong for us to do as human being. It's like these are people, these are individual. We shouldn't be even thinking that, but the fact that that's how the world is operating. So we need to have a lot of uncomfortable conversations in these tables, but I'll still find the power in these individual leadership and find a ways to really prevent it. How do you bring those resources to those communities who have nothing? That should be all of our thoughts, and really going to the root cause. Root cause is poverty. Root cause is that people don't have food. Root cause is that people are hungry. Mother is being abused. Fathers are being forcing working. They're not having enough money. They don't have house. So they're sending their children. None of the mother wants their children to work for 8-10 hours. They do it because they don't have a choice. They just don't have a choice. But if they will have the opportunities, they will change that. But these communities are just always underfunded, undersupported, unheard. And so how do we bring them and their voices in the center? Thank you.
Excellent way of putting it. Perhaps when we create a working group on that, we can address this as a particular challenge with all the actors right here and more, because the answer could only come, as Howard so brilliantly said, from everyone together. It's not just a one individual challenge. It's part of a family, a community, a society, a religious order, a cultural, and I've divided to, Nasrin, if you remember the first time we met, I asked you, would the religious leaders be of help to you? And that became a controversial question. Right, the power balance issue. Okay, fantastic. Amar, when you run to office, what are you going to say?
I think it was so good to hear to all of you, and we know that we are up at a place where we can learn from each other, and that's what we're doing. And at the end, because we don't have a much time, and time is almost over, and there are two more speakers will share their message. But the one and last thing which I would like to mention, that whatever the problems and issues which we are counting or talking about, I think we all individual are the responsible for all those problems. So I think I won't say that government is responsible. I won't say that NGO sector is responsible. I won't say that police is the responsible, or any specific people. I would say like we people are the responsible. So if anything wrong happening around us, I think it's mean that somebody from us who's doing something wrong, and who we are the people, we are not raising our voice and not saying that this is not right. So I think, yeah, everybody have to be take actions. Everybody have to be do their actions, which is very necessary. And I think intentions matter a lot, that what you priority at any place, at any power. If you are a leader of a country, and if children issues and human rights issues is the concern for you, definitely you go for it. But if your intention is not in that way, maybe we will not think like that. Like recently what we seeing, like a lot of like powerful countries around the world, or maybe the like they're fighting, they're doing a war, they're spending billions of money in the war, and at the end, like there are so many people who are losing their life, and the situation is getting more worse and worse. So like how you are getting such amount of money and spending such kind of the things, I think if you spend that much amount and that kind of the intention at a right place, I think we can find a lot of solutions. So yeah, intention matter a lot. Yeah, that's my end message for all of us.
Well, that's the very balanced one, because you began to say with what's wrong, but you're now saying, let's make it right. And that's the right way of going. So that's extremely important. Thank you. Hawa, your voice. Unmute. Yeah.
Yes, I have unmuted. I just want to read a 4-line piece that has emerged for me as people were sharing, because I'm a poet. They called them voiceless, but their silence carried thunder. A history untold, a truth too loud for soft tongues. Those are the 4 lines. It will be continued. I think intergenerational trauma from systemic inequality economically, whether it is structural marginalization or whatever situation the victims or the survivors of it find themselves in, is something that didn't happen as an event. So I know that it can't end as an event. There is processes, there is decisions to be made, actions to be taken, processes to undertake and undergo. And I know that it will not end overnight. I know so many efforts have been put in place. So many people have done the work, from the people that have shared on the panel today to other people who we may never hear about. Yesterday, I was, moving in one of the Kampala suburbs in Kabalagala, and there is a gentleman who has put up a structure, and it's hosting 230 children, because these children are in a ghetto community. It was a ghetto community. They have no access to food. They have no access to education. So he's just put up a small structure for the community. And he told me he hosts 230 children. That is from nursery school, that's baby class, till year 5. And I don't know I don't know what the future has for him, but I don't know if he'll ever be known globally. But that's something he's contributing. That's what he's doing in his small way. And for me, that's where my focus is at Our Cares Initiative. I'm going to make my contribution. And I'm going to make my contribution as a creative artist, as a poet, as a writer. I'll make my contribution, and I hope the ripple effect of the children that I work with, the young people that I work with, the networks we build on this webinar, in all the other ways that we contribute, I hope they create impact, but also for us to actually not to continue the cycle of victimhood and perpetrator, because sometimes as victims or as survivors, we tend to just fall into the perpetrator situation without knowing. Because if I am a survivor, I feel like maybe Dr. Yeo perpetrated this and it happened to me, so I have to. So I hope we are the people that do not pass it down, do not transfer it, but we transform it, and hopefully that we don't create more victims, but create more people that are conscious and aware of the impact of what this modern slavery and child slavery does, so that at least there is, the generational cycles of trauma are inhibited a bit, and maybe we are just passing down generational strengths and generational gifts that are positively impacting the world. My final remark would just be that we are not going to live forever, so let's all build or contribute to something that will.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. Silke, go ahead, dear.
What is there to add? What is there to add? But I think I want to take up one point that Hawa made, and which I have been thinking about for long, is that what we see is that very often traffickers and victims, survivors, come from the same breeding ground of circumstances. So one may become an offender, one a victim being exploited. And we heard that also from the survivors we work with. For them, it was really very important to have that community level outreach, and with this in mind, to take care of children, because they can be future perpetrators as well. And that's what we also need to consider. In any case, it's worthwhile taking care of children, right? And giving them opportunities. And sometimes it's really right, when I think of opportunities, my mind becomes big. But then when I hear from speakers, it could be water, access to clean clothes, access to food. I think that's very humbling. You can't just see why this should not be possible, right? Not to talk of university education, which is a different level, but all of these small steps could lead to that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Silke, we should have a separate either webinar or a separate expert meeting on how to unjargon, because I think it's an urgent problem today. Everywhere, everybody is saying the same words, and I've been there before these words were around, so it scares me. And I want to make sure that they keep their meanings, and not just become another piece of paper that nobody reads until somebody is really screaming. And nobody should get to the point of really having to scream. What can I say? This is an amazing beginning conversation. And I say beginning because I think the potential of just these people, our people, this bunch, is fantastic. So let's consider having a working group or whatever. Just think of, you're so creative, I don't need to instruct you how to use this treasure for good. So we continue on all these issues. And what can I say? Nobody has a question, which is very strange. I guess you came up with all the answers. But I'm sure a lot of people will come up with many questions, and don't be shy. This is precisely what the International Center is for, is to bring people together to have these conversations and to take them forward.
Dr. Yale, I've seen a hand up. I think it's Dr. Jules.
Oh, fantastic. Go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't. Go ahead, please. Finally. Go ahead. Wonderful. Who?
Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank
you. Yes, you asked at the beginning. This is perfect. You actually asked how to be in touch with Empowerment Collective, and you already have the answer in writing, but go ahead, Jules.
Okay, I greet everybody. it's always a pleasure for me to take part of the webinar organized by Dr. Yael. I thank all of the panelists, and I'm sad and happy that this question of children labor is actual. I congratulate also the lawyer. I don't know where is he from. Is he from Nepal or India? I can say that we, the contemporary, have failed to respect human rights, including children's rights. I think that we need to work for reducing children labor. Also, I can say that all the countries in the world and the government had adhered to the Human Charter and the Sustainable Development Goal. Any policy, any, how can I say, any program supposed to respect the SDG goals, including the children labor and the right to go to school and so on and so on and so forth. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Jules. I don't think there's a way to disagree with you. We all agree. It's just the question of, after we have created the norms, how do we really implement them? And who implements? And where? So, of course, you're so right, and please become an active member with us to keep that. But I think part of what the panel brought up so brilliantly is it has to go from the individual, from an individual child somewhere who may or may not even be part of the statistic because nobody knows about him or her. That child may not even be documented anywhere. That child is our challenge. And then every other dimension, the child who is documented somewhere in a poverty or in a discriminated against group that nobody wants to think about. In every webinar we have, that child appears, even if it's not, doesn't say so. So if a webinar about uranium in the DRC, you have the children of the miners, and they're born deformed. I don't need to dramatize. I don't feel it's the right thing to do. But we need to think that way. We need to think of individual, in family, in communities, in the total context. Let me see. Lois says, seems to me that the quotes world does not pay enough attention to this issue. Someone has to, quotes, die for the news to cover it. I'm sure many children die in this situation, but the world ignores it. Yes, our challenge is immense. That's why we must all get together to get the best wisdom and the best voices. And I think today's webinar has them. I just hope we have more. So I can only thank you again, and we'll continue. Just to say, to inform everybody, within the hour you'll receive the recording of this webinar and an invitation to our upcoming webinar on June 26th, which is the International Day of Support of Victims of Torture. So please keep joining us so you're not only a one issue person. Every issue adds another dimension to what we're talking about. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you again and to learn more from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
It was a
you,
pleasure.
Dr. Yo.
Great meeting you panelists. Was really good.
Continue.
It was nice
Okay.
meeting you too. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.